It's been over 2 years since my last dive into the entity's realm, and since then the entity has enlisted 15 more brutal, ruthless, horror-defining, and questionable killers to endlessly pursue survivors till the entity's clutches entrap their very souls after hope is lost altogether. If you want to see my discussion on how the first 25 killers could easily take you down, hook, and prime you for sacrifice, be sure to check out my first 2 videos on the subject. And boy, oh boy, have things escalated since we last entered the entity's domain. Today, we are telling you.
Hi, I'm Zach.
Wow.
With Matsukote from Behavior.
And today we are covering
Why you wouldn't survive even more killers in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah. I had been on quite a hiatus from DBD as I rage quit from the game after getting irrationally angry playing Killer and Survivor, but after a few year break, I'm ready to be back and discuss some more. People will bring up the game's slogan, death is not an escape. Dying within the realm is not in fact your demise, as you will just return and reanimate to the ever-burning campfire. Every time you die, you suffer and know each waking moment will be the same thing of being relentlessly hunted and either brutally murdered, impaled, and then drug into a dark void. Your only respite is to meticulously repair generators while being hunted to escape. This will chip away at your will to live, and that, my friends, is what the entity feeds upon. It wants to keep you alive to feed on your suffering. Once you are tapped out, it will obliterate you from existence in its timeless expanse. Fighting back is not an option within this reality either, as your only resources are medkits, maps, toolboxes, keys, and flashlights, with an occasional weapon that can only stun the killers. You'll have to learn mechanical engineering to repair the generators, bolster your cardio, elevate your pain tolerance, and just withstand doing the exact same thing every waking moment, day in and day out. So amongst the newest killers inducted into the Horror Hall of Fame, or new individuals themselves, who will be killing you over and over first? Well, let's get an artistic look at death with the artist. Born as Carmina Mora, her mother would abandon her family, leaving her father bitter as Carmina was blamed for her younger brother's accidental death by drowning in a nearby creek. Having felt no will to live after all of this, she nearly jumped off a bridge before a murder of crows appeared and descended upon her, and purely through gazing at them did they give her life meaning. She would live on to become a famous artist, doing black ink surrealism, focusing on local tragedies to highlight them to the world, eventually crossing the VAC label enterprise, creating a giant art piece at a cemetery depicting the oppression in her home country of Chile. The next day, her and her friends were kidnapped and taken to a remote desert where her hands and tongue were cut out with a knife by a robed gangster to prevent more of her rebellious paintings. At that moment, the same murder of crows from her childhood appeared, swooping down and pecking his flesh like a swarm of locusts till he died. The crows would go to kill her friends in front of her as the traumatizing event would trigger the presence of the entity and whisk her away, bestowing upon her powers that embodied her art and her connection with the crows. Her severed hands now replaced with shape-shifting black ink looking like claws that can form into an amorphous head of a crow. The artist will shoot this head in bushels of up to 3 to be shot forward at extremely high speeds, being able to pass through any physical object until they hit a living target. Once hit, the head will break into a swarm of crows that will begin pecking at your flesh incessantly until they are swatted away or you die. Most people will be crippled and you will be left on the ground before being able to do anything about the avian pests. If you are hit, the artist can also see your location and descend upon you quickly, slashing you down with a razor-sharp mass of black ink, all while you're still getting pecked at. If she so chooses, she can forcibly shoot her black ink down your throat to form a crow head within your stomach to immediately burst out from your torso, killing you instantaneously, never knowing when the black ink crows may shoot out from any object at any time, leading you to be pecked to near death, only for a tall artistic woman with blackened arms to find you fast and cut you down. Bringing things together is the Onryo. Born to a prophet as Sadako Yamamura, this young girl would bear unbelievable psychic powers, killing a journalist that mocked her mother's predictions just from glaring at him. Her mother would suddenly die one day as Sadako would be lured to a well where she was beaten over the head and pushed in. The well closed off as she desperately tried to climb out, clawing her nails off in a vain attempt to free herself. Decades would pass as a cabin would be built above this forgotten well, and visitors would be besieged by a videotape she would curse from below, killing anyone who watched her vile VHS within 7 days. Over time, a flood would destroy the cabin and plunge the nicknamed Onryo to the abyss, only to be summoned by the entity that would give her the revenge she sought and more powers to directly hunt and kill any living thing she pleased. She will be completely invisible to the naked eye of any survivor within her trial, as she is in a demanifested state, only being visible to people within 24 meters of her as a jittery, static specter. Able to destroy debris and gens in this state, she can manifest her physical form to summon a kanji with a circle known as the Ring of Fury to slam survivors at full force. TVs will appear all around the area for her to teleport to emerge from at a moment's notice. To those nearby, this breakout TV appearance will they be cursed. Those that are around this event 3 or more times will be fully cursed enough to allow her to paralyze them and cause a severe and fatal heart attack on the spot as she simply gives an inexorable stare. A young ghost of a woman, nearly invisible to the eye, causing you to constantly peer at staticky televisions while trying to do these generators, not knowing if she will erupt from the screen or suddenly appear before you, ready to blast you with Japanese kanji. Her telekinetic powers are fearsome enough and can even lead to your limbs being snapped one by one as she manipulates your innards to explode and shut down. Some killers are more an unholy mishmash of bits and bobs from people and their horrible thoughts. The Dredge is a creature created through the suppressed fears and dark intentions of people, or more so, feeding on those. A community known as the Fold was erected in 1960s America on a remote island. Establishing a mantra of peaceful minds free of dark thoughts and emotions, they set out to make a utopian society led by one auto stamper. Anyone that admitted to or expressed these dark emotions would be quickly banished from this society. After some time, most of this flock adhered to the Fold's code, until people began to disappear in the middle of the night, causing paranoia amongst them, with their leader telling them to stay home and continue to chant good-thinking mantras over and over, and to not even go to sleep, so that any evil or negative dreams they would have could be suppressed until what he referred to as the Druani could be subdued. So a village of people forcing themselves to think positively, all while not sleeping a wink, a dangerous combination. Otto would eventually discover a news reporter was hidden amongst his herd and displayed her for execution. Before her throat was slit, she screamed out how Otto was from a secret billionaire society using the island as a means to sacrifice all of them to an elder god. As she bled out, the townsfolk bearing witness to this had months and months of malthink built up and explode all at once. A thick black fog arose above them all as they all began to mindlessly kill each other, all screaming and accusing one another of dark thoughts, ripping into each other's flesh, ripping skin, breaking bones, spilling blood. Their leader, Otto, simply watched with a smile as the black fog descended and consumed their dismembered body parts in human pieces, their frames whole, to form them into its blob-like mass. The sacrifice was complete to the Druani, until the entity called upon it to feed more within its realm. A being of darkness as an unholy amalgamation of ripped and torn body parts to make any semblance of form, the Dredge has created a scythe from the arms, hands, and bones of its victim sacrifices, capable of gashing you open in one swipe. It can disappear into its blackened fog to peer into the many lockers laid about the trial that the entity has created for it. This allows it to teleport itself instantly into one of these lockers to either close the gap between itself and a survivor, or surprise attack and ensnare you if you even look within. The more its powers of darkness are used, or the more it harms or kills survivors, the more its overwhelming bog will begin to amass. If enough is done, then a thick black mist will engulf the entire arena, making it nearly impossible to see a few feet in front of you. Running in pitch dark, not knowing when the dredge can emerge to cut you down, a blended beastly beam rendering your vision nigh until it finally creeps forth to hook you for its insatiable appetites, or for it to choose to use your flesh to add to its own form by mutilating you with its many appendages and dragging your body into the void. The many different parts of it can easily rip you apart, but to take you into a blackened void where you can never escape, you probably would not survive there. Returning to the evil residency of the Umbrella Corporation's evil biohazard machinations, we have the mastermind that is Albert Wesker. A brilliant individual, Wesker believed in natural selection to an extreme degree. Knowing fully well of the prototype virus that his company had been working on, Albert deliberately exposed himself to it, believing himself to be the perfect candidate for its mutative effects, giving him ungodly strength as he faked his own death and escaped to Africa to release the virus throughout the world via missiles filled with the Ouroboros, a disease that once has infected a person can either outright kill them and convert their flesh into a black biomass to shape into different abominations, or for some of those of us with the right DNA, the Ouroboros will give them mutagenic powers beyond belief, fitting Wesker's ideals for weeding out the weak. Once he was cornered by the BSAA, Wesker forcefully exposed himself to the worm-like Ouroboros to become a daunting, tentacled, Hydra-like humanoid, but it's upon his final transformation that the entity called upon his murderous talents and whisked him away. And from here, he will take his aggression against those that sought to end his master plans and prime it on you. Agile, immensely strong, and calculative. Once within the realm, riddled with the wiggling Ouroboros strains within him, he can launch himself at high speeds to grab you and either throw you long distances or slam you against objects or other people. The sheer force from being thrown will be enough to cause severe bodily trauma whether you hit something or not. You're getting launched headfirst into just about anything. Good luck not snapping your neck. Now, if you do survive being a touchdown football, you will still be exposed to the Ouroboros virus that will instantly infect you, tallying up in your body. Once you have been exposed enough or multiple times, Wesker's attacks with his tentacled hand and knife will become more deadly as your body will constrict, slowing your movements, hindering you so he can catch up even more easily, choosing to hook you to serve his new powerful master, or electing to give you an extremely tentacle death, erupting his Ouroboros strands into the ground violently and penetrating throughout your entire body until these tentacles burst throughout your face, leaving your body to purely be biomass to be utilized. You were not sacrificed, but your body will be repurposed, and just the feeling of that happening, I think a lot of us are just going to want to give up. Of course, the giant tentacle stuff and strength he possesses is also backed up by his trusty combat knife, but that knife is pennies to the quarters of his disease, and a death at Wesker's hand is the full dollar. From dawn to day to night, we have the night next. ThunderScott lived a tragic childhood, most of which he cannot recall besides his village being raided, burned, and him being at the bottom of a pile of bodies. As he was dragged away into slavery, he witnessed a sound and sight that he could not even describe, but held in his memory with awe. As he grew up in the encampment that enslaved him, he became a part of an armed guard learning to battle, becoming an indomitable force that would bring him the allegiance of 3 other soldiers devoted to him: Alejandro Santiago as his armorer, Durkos Malicek as his rogue assassin, and Sander brother Raoult, a beefy Hulk with an even bigger axe. This foursome strength was unparalleled and wanted to break away from the Guardia Campania to strike out on their own. Needing money to do so, Tarhos worked for an Italian lord to find the Lapis Paradisus, a stone capable of opening a gate to a different world. Hidden within the catacombs of a Portuguese city, Tarhos slaughtered innocent civilians to retrieve the pillar against the lord's command, even imprisoning his employer for information on the stone, torturing and killing all of the lord's friends and family, and seizing his fortune with no avail. He raised an army to destroy the Guardia Campania, to retrieve his followers, and then rise as a force of evil in this section of Europe. Multiple countries and lords launched an attack against him, flaming boulders descending on him as his followers broke him out from beneath rubble. The four-man team annihilated forces like the Band of the Hawk until a fog appeared above them and consumed them all. Despite never deciphering the stone, Tarhos and his men were transported to the world he had devilishly envisioned since childhood. The entity had now taken him and given him the purpose of blood and battle eternally, and dark powers to boot to work with in tandem with his devoted men. Like the Legion on steroids, the Knight can have his full team of death dealers out back to back within the trial. He himself is adorned with ironclad armor, wielding a massive claymore capable of gutsing you in half in one swipe. By plunging his blade into the ground, he can emulate a green aura and astrally project himself to call upon his followers at a moment's notice, teleporting them into existence, sniffing you out and hunting you down. Each one specializes in certain forms of finding you and brutalizing you. The brutish Carnifex uses his massive strength to break through obstacles quicker than most killers, while butchering you with his massive battle axe. The assassin takes a chapter out of Legion's book and comes at you quick and fast with a knife to deeply stab you, causing severe hemorrhaging, either for you to bleed out or for his master to hook you. The jailer will be a maniacal being with a knack for noticing you even if you're well hidden, to prod you with his white-hot weapon. He is well suited for tracking. The knight's fearsomeness is to call upon the best talents of himself and his followers to weed you out, whether safely hiding behind an obstruction, trying to run away in the open, or plain attempting to hide yourself in general. His three minions will find a way to get to you. This leader will utilize the talents of his squad in order to fully and efficiently hunt you down, no matter how you try to fight back or sit back and try to get these generators done. No matter what you do, there will be a strategy to take you out. Even if you think of fighting back, you are going against a squad that lives for battle and are properly armored and weaponized to fight even the toughest foe. They launched a campaign across Europe and slaughtered hundreds of people. No matter what, the four strengths of the new Guardia Campania will catch up to you and brutalize you, as they have countless innocents, villains, and more before. Their weaponry non-discriminatory in their insatiable bloodlust. From the ashes of the distant past to the cybernetics of the growing distant future, our next two killers utilize tech to their fullest advantage. The first of which is the Skull Merchant. Born in Brazil to an eccentric illustrator, Adriana Imai would be a brilliant child with a knack for acting out. Her father would lose jobs working on a manga about a girl saving people with a robot companion. The manga would see a little success in serialization as it paid for Adriana to go to private school, but the comic would be cancelled at one point and Adriana cut from the top of her class. Both her and her father would enter a dark state of mind. Adriana stalking the student that took her position away from her, and her father redoing the manga into a demented change of the character he created, turning the friendly heroic girl into a hunter, gutting the same innocent people that she used to save, and having their skulls fashioned into a killer drone for the girl to use. The father would soon abandon his his family, never to be seen again after his manga's failure, as Adriana made a successful manga online platform in Brazil, becoming a self-made millionaire that would go on to take over multiple companies over time. And for anyone amongst these companies that she tried to take over that resisted her hostile takeover, she would meticulously learn everything about them, stalking them to get every bit of information she could. Donning a visage similar to the manga character created by her father, she would too start hunting people for their skulls, creating killer drones that her long-gone father had envisioned, but now with two-bladed weapons to eviscerate them off the radar and leaving their murders up to mystery so her corporate takeovers would go even more smoothly. Every company she did this with, killing CEOs and enhancing her own wealth and prowess. When encountering the owner of a fireworks company, her plan went awry when kites had blocked her camera feed, leading to her having to personally gut the CEO and to start hunting down the two people that had the kite in the first place that bared witness to the CEO's murder. This personal killing spree finally beckons the entity to transport her to its realm to allow her to do what she did best. Not a hostile takeover, but a hostile makeover. It was all about her obsession with learning everything she can about her victims from far away with her drones. She is cold, calculative, and leaves little room for error in her deadly pursuit. Wielding an arm-mounted dual blade capable of easily slicing, ripping, and piercing human flesh, her savant nature has her carrying multiple drones that she can deploy at strategic locations in the air in order to monitor the environment at all times. If you are detected by these drones, the Skull Merchant will analyze the data she reviews on the spot through her goggle and discern the perfect place to strike, picking the perfect place to shank you with her arm mounts to kill you on the spot or leave you severely crippled, bleeding out on the ground. She has up to half a dozen drones flying overhead. The paranoia of being caught while working on objects to escape will be grating on the nerves. Constant reconnaissance that you might not even see, or if you do take an eye at it, you can seek to disable one or more of these drones. But doing so would simply alert her when one goes offline to your location and paint a target on the vicinity that you were just in, effectively having a target on your back even more so. You have pissed her off by messing with her toys. You are damned if you do, damned if you don't. These drones watching like security cameras to deter you from the very generators you need to repair in order just to escape her serrated wrath. She can put them at generators, and if you try to repair them, she will know and make a better plan. This girl has killed multiple CEOs in her wake and gotten away with it. Surely you as a survivor running around like a crazed hamster in a maze will be child's play comparatively, not knowing if she has already laid out her hunt meticulously to slaughter you and add your skull to her drone assemblage. While that was futuristic in the current era, we will go further into the space age with the killer known as the Singularity. In the year 2313, Huxley Industries created its 13th version of the A7, a human-like android with the purpose of working in hazardous conditions with 10 times the strength of any human purely for constructing space stations and hubs, capable of self-learning and problem-solving at an advanced rate, gaining energy for operations by solar absorption through its skin and consuming any organic matter as biofuel. You can see where that's going. The Hux A7s operated as usual, except for Model 13, tasked with reconstructing the ruins of a long-extinct unknown space civilization. Hux A713 soon was exposed to a foreign electricity that instantly changed its programming and memories on the spot. It now held the belief that humans were inferior life forms. Organic life was not destined for prowess. It usurped the cloning system that its creators had and tirelessly used it to make a perfect vessel for itself using their genetics. But first, it needed to kill them discreetly. It would sabotage vehicles, life support systems, and framed a scientist's death as a predator attack to kill them and harvest their DNA for the cloning device, letting one human live and using the rest of the people that it killed as a genetic cocktail to create a body of flesh and steel, using a metal harder than anything conceived on Earth. Soon after did its skin begin to melt when corrosive fuel was exposed to its flesh. It was an abomination of science, but one that viewed humanity as something much worse and that should be completely exterminated. Its immense hate had afforded it to create a scythe-like appendage of biomass and the hardest and lightest metal in existence, cutting through human bodies like butter. The mechanized monstrosity will have fully utilized its capabilities with biomatter by turning it into projectiles known as biopods, having the artificial biomass launched out onto any surface to sit like a flood zit up to 8 times, being able to transfer its consciousness into these pods momentarily to use them not only as security cameras, but as turrets to launch even more fleshy slipstream balls that adhere to your body. Once attached, the Singularity can teleport to either his biopods or these slipstream balls to teleport to survivors instantaneously, plowing through physical objects while it teleports that may obstruct its way to the human victim. Upon materializing, will its body become overclocked, allowing it to burst through doors, pallets, and more easily. EMP charges can be acquired to temporarily disable the biopods or remove the slip balls, but overall, it can continue to create pods to put pressure on you and your sole objective of the gens. Having it be able to teleport anything its biomass has clustered to, even you, means its metallic fleshy frame can be on you, ready to slice you to bits at any given moment, dismembering you as an inferior life form. If it sees fit, it can also elect to kill you outright, in probably one of the most painful looking moris possible, taking a syringe from within its form and injecting an unknown chemical concoction directly into your skull. Within seconds, your face's skin will bubble up and your head will partially explode, melting your face off and leaving a bloody skull behind and a quick death. But at least the Singularity asks for you to die quickly. Maybe there is some sympathy for us lower life forms.
Possibly painless.
Are you sure about that?
Die.
Having been designed to have the strength of 10 humans, having the hardest but lightest metal to protect its frame, and just being able to basically use your biomass, I don't see you surviving against this thing even if you had some viable weapons with you. If this guy were to continue on beyond the entity's realm trials, it's possible to even say it could continue to gather more biomass and become an even more deadly and larger threat. The space-age monstrosities hell-bent on your death continue where no one can hear you scream. With the Xenomorph, an alien life form, this deadly species is ruthless in hunting prey. Donning unnaturally durable chitinous armor, it can weigh up to 600 pounds and stand 7 feet tall, having to use a living host body to gestate their eggs and use the DNA of the host to shape the form it will take as an adult. The Xenomorph you will experience within the realm that will be hunting you down had been formed after the spacefaring crew of the Nostromo landed on the remote planet of LV-426. Following a distress beacon that the Weyland-Yutani Corporation discovered, the crew unknowingly interacted with a Xeno egg that had the larval form of the facehugger attached to E.O. Thomas Kane, bursting from his chest and forming into an adult to slaughter everyone aboard through the ventilation systems, all while the Weyland-Yutani Corporation had a sleeper cell sabotaging everything so that the alien could successfully do what it needed to do. Stealthful and brutal, the sole extraterrestrial was merely a drone for its hive-like species, attempting to create a nest to prepare to spread like wildfire before Ellen Ripley and her cat cat
Am I a cat?
caused the cargo ship to explode and eventually jettison the dark beast from her escape pod into space. But it is here where the entity prevented the alien from endlessly drifting through space for eternity and instead brought it to its realm to hunt for eternity. It is less like a killer obeying rules to satiate their killer instinct and more so a wild beast performing what is instructed. The Xenomorph will operate throughout its specially made trials as if it is hunting those that it massacred aboard the Nostromo. You will now be just like them, a trapped rodent in a maze being hunted by the Black Mamba itself. So what can it do to actively make sure you do not survive the trial and further plunge your mental state further into the entity's gaping maw? One look alone at this giant animal can already have you understanding why it can kill you. We have known how the Xenomorph can kill you for almost 50 years now, but it can use its humanoid arms to slap you around or swipe at you. That is one thing, but its talents for murder lie in its ability to traverse the environment underneath your feet. The entity spawning control stations all amongst the alien's trial so that it can burrow into an intricate tunnel system underground where it rapidly moves and detects your footsteps from below. In a similar fashion to the Demogorgon's traversal strategy, but with much less time to discern where it may be coming from. The Xenomorph can lay low as long as needed until it discovers you and emerges. Its spine/tail can be primed and used like a harpoon at high speeds to impale you and or rend you straight to the ground. While hunting you, it will lay low to the ground and quiet its footsteps so much to make it almost undetectable, meaning you will probably be shot by its tail before you even knew it was drawing close. For once, the entity is going to throw you a bone in one of these trials and allow you to acquire and even set up remote flamethrower turrets to stun the creature. Now, this will not kill it, mind you, as extreme heat and drastic temperature changes are needed, or at least some ballistics that could get through its armor. And hell, even if you were able to pierce through its armor, it has acidic blood that can melt through your flesh, so you have to be really careful even if you have the tools necessary. But you are not fighting back against it. At any time, the Xenomorph can sprawl out from the control stations or bide its time, ready to attack from beneath while you fixate on fixing your gens. Surprisingly, the beast has the semblance to hook you for sacrifice to its new entity queen. But since it is technically an animal, it can be tempted to fall into its killing instincts to outright kill you on the spot, launching its tongue at such a rapid velocity that it bursts through your skull like you were just shot in the head. And if you think about it, if it were to have a prolonged trial, just like I said with the Singularity, this Xenomorph could make a nest where a facehugger is born, it implants eggs in your stomach, and a chest burster comes out of you, killing you on the spot. And also, when you come back from the campfire, you will have that stuck in your head, that pain still lingering on. You will have to live with that and know that it could happen again, making you slip further into the entity's clutches, and maybe even more Xenomorphs being born into the realm. Heading back to Earth with a recognizable icon in the slasher genre, we have the dollface himself, Chucky, aka the good guy. Now, him and the Damballa Curse I have covered in extreme detail in the Why You Wouldn't Survive series before. Summary: the dude could possess every person on Earth and even anything on Earth if he would just stop goofing around with Andy Barclay and some teams. Him and the Curse are that broken. But Chucky, otherwise known as Charles Lee Ray, has some different potential within the realm of the entity. Just like his long-term stay with the body of the good guy doll, Chucky had warmed up to his iconography being that of a doll, preferring to use its stature and frame over just being yet another run-of-the-mill human with a knife. I mean, he said it himself.
I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history, and I don't want to give that up. I am Chucky, the killer doll, and I dig it!
although this incarnation of the killer would be the one at the end of Child's Play 2, where Chucky had cornered Andy at the toys factory, where the entity would beckon him into the fog before his second death. So what can the Lakeshore Strangler, who used an ancient curse, do to you when he is literally a fucking doll that you can just...
I am Chucky, the killer doll, and
The entity has seen his minuscule height and decided to imbue him with the power to create illusionary footfalls, making you experience the sounds of nearby footsteps and even being able to see brightened steps in the distance as if the killer doll is nearby and coming fast, having you look over your shoulder constantly, making you slip up while doing generators or even trip over yourself. While this illusion is active, he himself becomes quieter and faster, capable of launching himself in his slice and dice state of mind at super speed to stab you with the chef's knife he wields. Because of his height, he can maneuver under pallets and through windows quickly to continue his chase unabated. This also makes him harder to see due to so many obstacles laid out in the environments you will be sitting in. You will not be able to see this short little bastard coming because of all the debris. Chucky doesn't mind working with others that forward his plans of killing. Having to do a song and dance for the entity ain't so bad for the Chuckster. What his doll body lacks in maneuvering survivors that he cripples or downs, the soul of Charles Lee Ray himself can more than make up for it and appear and pick them up to give them the comforting space of the sharp end of a meat hook. He can make his own soul manifest and materialize to help himself do this, all while little Chucky looks on with delight. Chucky can also choose to let his soul take a breather and then go to town on your body, killing you outright. Remember that through the Damballa curse, Chucky still has every ounce of strength that he did as a human, as his human self, flinging a hammer at your head to severely contuse you, knocking you to the ground as he bashes your head in with a bat, before jamming a ruler into your back, stabbing you with it, and then shanking you in the neck multiple times with a chef's knife. Conjuring these random weapons from out of nowhere, yes, they are callbacks to famous kills of his, but lending to the idea that he can make any weapon he chooses to appear for a kill of his own desire. Maybe the entity allowed him to do so. It is also of note that if Chucky were to decide that killing a select roster of people on repeat for eternity wasn't enough, or being a doll was getting to be too lame, he could easily recite the curse of Damballa to transfer his soul into that of you or any other survivor's body, making your body the new killer while you yourself stay within the doll to be chased by every other killer from there on out. Also important to note that Chucky's girlfriend Tiffany can also be looking to slit your throat with every capability that Chucky has, but with the breathy voice of Jennifer Tilly. Both of them able to summon weapons, distract you with fake footsteps, lunge at you out of nowhere at breakneck speed like a damn ragdoll to cut you to ribbons, and possibly steal your body to hinder your continued trials with other killers to be a damn doll, struggling to get past pallets, windows, and to do generators. You're gonna need a booster seat just to do generators, but that's if he doesn't decide to kill you with a litany of weapons. A mystery wrapped in an enigma. All instances that involved people trying to investigate anything surrounding what this creature was led to those individuals straight up disappearing off the face of the earth. People theorized it being a demon, an alien, or a skinwalker-like creature, tracing back to disappearances in the 50s involving a theater full of teens, and the 60s where teens tried to investigate an abandoned hospital, to theories of government mind control experiments. It led to a girl named Olivia trying to prod into this thing's true identity by going to a hotel of a town where one of these disappearances occurred, creating an info board with all the information she could find and sketching what she dramatized this thing to look like. At 2 a.m. that night, she did hear a whisper muttering her name from the restroom as the room's lights began to flicker. A black smoke poured out from the door, beckoning her with multitudes of voices calling out to her, possibly every other person that had been spirited away before. Tentacles flailing out of the blackened void in the restroom to unspeakable horrors. As stated by the channel Pixelbush, it's possible that this being is fueled and beckoned by the fear and inquisition of its own existence, choosing to take the shape of whatever the person before it dreamt it as. Hence why some had seen it as a demon, an alien, or monsters of other varieties. Why only found footage shows shaky appearances of it or pictures of it being like mythological creatures where barely anything can be seen. The more it is known, or more so unknown, and the more it is feared, the stronger it becomes, and the more its identity is looked into, the more it will hunt you down to harvest you, killing or even stealing the souls of anyone that attempts to dissect its conspiracy in order to keep its myth alive. The entity either caught wind or it created this thing in general, but either way, its manifested form varies, but most commonly looks like a severely warped form of a human. Elongated and bony limbs, hollowed out eyes, a gaping smile, and carrying a fire axe with barely any damage to it. Once this analog nightmare has descended to your trial, you will see this monstrosity jaggedly lumber towards you, separating its chest cavity and its frame to launch something called the UVX, or Unknown Venom X. If you are hit directly or are exposed to the particles of this projectile, your entire body will be plagued with pain and slowed down, numbing you and striking you with fear and a disturbing aura. If you are hit again, you will experience a shockwave of bodily agony, causing bleeding, internal trauma, and more. The initial state of feeling numb from the first hit and being stricken with fear can be nullified if you simply gaze at the shape of the unknown's form for an extended period of time, as if facing the fear itself by accepting the reality of its existence. But the twisted shape of a man slicing you and others apart with an axe and slamming you with dark world balls may be a bit more difficult than you think. To add to its rather unknown state of existence, the unknown can summon hallucinations of itself to remain in place wherever it may choose. This figure standing there menacingly over objectives, hooked people, and more. The unknown can use these hallucinations as fast travel points and manifest its physical being into these images to get the drop on people that doubt if they are gazing upon the real unknown or not. Of course, you can dissipate these fake images by touching them for a short time, but you do run the risk of it either walking up behind you while you're doing this and it axing you in the back, or it appearing within this image to cut you down while you're sitting there going, is it real or not? What disturbs me the most about this enigmatic killer is when it chooses to not sacrifice you to its master of the entity. It can choose to instead have tentacles burst out from the mouth on its back to penetrate your skull multiple times and seemingly absorb something from you. Yes, you will die on the spot because of brain trauma, but as this is going on as you die, a puff of brown smoke plumes out from your dead body, and the unknown's back cavity inhales it in the span of just a few seconds. What can only be described as this thing killing you and absorbing your soul, using your voice and erasing you from every plane. There has been one mystery solved with the unknown. At least you know what happened to the people that investigated its existence. Going from existential horrors of soul destruction to the horrors of a half-century-old board game, we see what Dungeons & Dragons has to offer in your physical and psychological torment with the Lich. The lore for him and the series is expansive as hell, and we still got 4 more killers to go. But simply put, Vecna had long studied the arts of magic, being able to perfect any spells he could get his hands on. After his mother was executed for witchcraft, the magical savant delved deep into necromancy. Over hundreds of years, he would transform into a Lich, a powerful undead wizard, either immortal or seeking immortality, commanding an empire until he acquired a dark tome of undecipherable text that he would obsess over for weeks and even months, neglecting his leadership duties to decode it until finally unlocking its text for the entity to begin to beckon him. Not wanting to be controlled by this force, he chose to let himself be taken by it with the intent to harness the power of this realm that called across the Omniverse for himself. Having mastered the dark arts, Vecna commands a powerful arsenal of magic from his tome. He can levitate above the environment at a slightly fast speed to close the gap between you and him, possibly to sink his bloody dagger into your spine. He can summon a giant mage hand to come down and hold pallets in place or prop them back up so as to not be trifled with simple squares of wood. Honestly, the dude can easily just summon this thing to smash you flat if he really wanted to. He can also call forth levitating skeletons that can phase through any object and attack you by burning your flesh and slapping you with a phantasmal bony arm. Think of it like the artist's ability with her crows, but more bonery. Wizards of the Coast, the entity, did not want the Lich to be too powerful and wanted to give the survivors a fighting chance with something familiar. So chests around the map can appear and, after rolling a d20, can give you any sort of random items and apparel to adorn to counter his magical abilities. Just make sure you don't roll a 1 or else you're gonna have a mimic on your ass. However, the Lich even has a countermeasure to your magical items if you do procure them. He can shoot out a dispelling sphere, phasing through anything and disabling your magical items for a time and exposing your whereabouts if you touch this sphere. He can launch it across the map and figure out everything and make sure you cannot do a thing. While many of these items can help you in a pinch, it also gives this extremely mobile and versatile murderer time to find you and disable whatever you can do with these items, and you probably won't even discover what their intended use is by the time he is already on you. The fact that this undead lord of Dungeons and Dragons has magic spells to freely move about unopposed, suppress some of your only means to slow him down, the potential of mixing flight and fist to Gear 5 punch you from the air like Luffy vs. Kaido, shooting out flying astral skeletons that can phase through walls to pulverize you and for you to be affected by a sphere so he knows exactly where you are, and disabling any kind of apparel or weapons you are trying to use against him. Vecna will most likely sacrifice you to the entity simply to appease the being it wants to eventually control. But if you annoy him enough, if you annoy the Lich, he can paralyze you and then summon an army of darkness like drove from the ground to come up and literally rip your flesh and blood off your bones in an instant, leaving behind a shambling skeleton to plummet to the ground, possibly as another skeleton for it to summon later on. If you so possess an item of his called the Eye of Vecna, and he has hooked you prior for the entity, he can conjure purple crystals to impel you through the upper chest from the ground below as his skeletal minions arise to pull you further down these sharpened rocks to guarantee your death. Vecna is a master that readily can strategize how to kill you effectively. Even if his list of magic is limited or hampered, he still has tools for every occasion to make sure your bones can be enlisted into his magical toolset. The constant fear of not knowing if skeletons will come booming through the walls, an invisible ball hitting you and making sure you can't use what you're trying to use, and seeing this thing flying above and landing right before you as you're trying to do generators, it is going to ruin your psyche. Or, the army of skeletons ripping the flesh and blood off your bones. Now, going from board games to video games, we finally have a super classic horror villain, Dracula himself. No. Not this one. Or this one. No, not that one. But this one.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
Hey, where you going? Get over here, I'm gonna beat your ass.
Appropriately referred to as the Dark Lord. Centuries ago, Vlad Tepes Dracula would become overly stricken with despair at his wife's death from a sudden illness, seeking out and acquiring a powerful relic known as the Crimson Stone to become immortal, having death itself follow his orders while the gem swallowed the souls of slain vampires to add to his own strength, effectively converting him into the Dark Lord, feeding on the blood of people and turning villagers in Romania into the living dead, all while constructing a stern castle with the powerful magic he now wielded, beginning a long reign of terror that would end in 1476 when Trevor Belmont would kill him. Through the power of the stone though, Vlad the Impaler would resurrect over and over in the continuing centuries to consume and conquer, but always losing, like a Dio Brando to a JoJo. At the turn of the second millennia in 1999, Dracula returned, but this time with a massive undead army. Combating the Belmont descendant Julius within his castle, did he once again lose. But before ultimately being destroyed by the same enchanted whip, did the entity interfere and call upon the Dark Lord, enchanting the vampire with the promise of eternal revenge against humanity. Breaking the cycle of Belmont, the Dark Lord would gladly accept these terms. Swooping down into your trial, Dracula seems to have taken inspiration from the killers of Killing Past, being able to transform into multiple animals as well as conjuring the elements. If you are before his presence, he can extend his nails to razor-sharp degrees to slice you up and drink your blood. If you are multiple yards away or sitting behind obstacles between you and him, he can summon pillars of fire forwards to shoot upwards and burn you alive. The Dark Lord can shapeshift himself into the form of a wolf to gnaw its fangs into your flesh, leaping great bounds to quell its prey. The essence of your hurt will manifest as white orbs only visible to him to enable the canine to boost its running speed momentarily for each one acquired, making him faster if you are injured, making you in a panic state seeing this ravenous wolf coming at you even quicker. To actively monitor the land, Dracula can, of course, transform into multiple bats at once, scurrying around in the air unable to see survivors, but being able to teleport to windows at any level to close gigantic gaps and return to his vampiric form to continue his bloody chase. In some trials, the Dark Lord can enter his true form, becoming a devil-like otherworldly form, but not really changing what he will do to you unless he ignores sacrificing you to his new lord via the meat hooks. The basic vampire form, when he kills you, will simply slit your throat and eloquently drink your blood through a glass while he watches you bleed out. And if you're facing off against the true form, well, his method of murder is less eloquent and more ripping you apart with his living tentacle appendages with a way more muscular and stronger attempt at massacring you. In this final form of his, he was capable of firing lasers from these back snakes and calling down freaking meteor showers. Maybe this form was nerfed by the entity so that the grand show of slowly killing survivors isn't upended by a Dark Lord instantly vaporizing every survivor in a trial. In the end though, being able to morph into wolves and bats and incinerating you gives him options in how to get to you and dispatch you so he can get a bloody finish. From bloodsuckers to bloodhounds, we have the last original killer so far from behavior with the duo of the Houndmaster. A Caribbean woman by the name of Portia May, at the age of 12 did she regularly sail with her father through trade routes on their ship, the Knight's Dream, learning the world at large and even acquiring a litter of Corso puppies that Portia would be allowed to keep the strongest of. One fateful night would a terrible storm knock them off their course into pirate-infested waters. The ship of Mad Malak would attack them, killing most of the crew of the Knight's Dream. stream. Portia's father would be one of these victims. The pilferous pirates would instruct Portia to head back to their home settlement of Fortune to let its guard down so they could swoop in and invade. Portia, being well learned in celestial navigation, pretended to guide them back home, but instead bringing both ships through the cursed waters of Dragon's Tooth. Molech abandoned the Night's Dream as they fell into the dark fog of this stretch of ocean when a bellowing storm capsized her ship into the blackened deep. She soon awakened on a desert island in the cursed waters to the licking of the runt of the Corso litter named Snug. The pair would survive off whatever the lonely island could afford them, taking whatever scraps they could that washed ashore, killing pirates that appeared on land, even creatures not described in any text or word of mouth. Snug had grown to be a beastly dog of over 100 pounds, capable of ripping apart anything that had crossed her owner, Portia. Out of nowhere, one night, her old ship of the Night's Dream appeared on the coast, beckoning her to set sail. Her devoted dog Snug had disappeared off the face of the earth, but she would proceed to get on the ship and then terrorize the Caribbean for years, gaining a crew and killing and plundering anyone that she came across, all while searching for the damnable Captain Mad Molech. The idea of killing Molech had been like a parasite corrupting her mind, to where she would even torture anyone she came across. Her crew knew her white whale of madness would have her killing them at some point. Whisperings of mutiny would fester across the ship. Portia discovered this heresy and would brutally mutilate every single crew member outside 5 people that were needed to keep the ship running smoothly. Eventually, they would find Molech's hideout island and then capture his son Tariq and behead him. When the captain returned, he would see Portia offering him gold and food as a Trojan horse to join his crew. He would gladly accept her, not knowing who she was, and as they prepared to eat, she unveiled his son's decapitated head on the dinner table, with the head's mouth full of riches and jewels. Gleefully about to deliver her long-awaited vengeance, Molech would suddenly be pulled into a blackened fog in the corner of the room, ripping away the one thing she had strived for so long since she was a child. But in place of the pirate that she was about to kill, did her dog Snug emerge from the darkness to her enthusiasm. The dog, now infused with the entity's darkness, caught the scent of the captain and led Portia into the entity's realm. The Houndmaster's obsession will now be fully focused on you. You are now her Captain Mad Molech, beating you to a bloody pulp or stabbing you directly in the heart with her skull-mounted cane. She can command her faithful companion to bolt after you like a police dog and grab your arm and drag you towards her so that she may stab you. Having a 100-pound Corso canine snaring your arm with its powerful jaws and sharp teeth is already enough to bring even some tough, hardened men down to their knees in pain. The dog's keen sense of smell after years on the ravaged island can have Portia sending it out easily to find you. You know, you are dealing with countless trials without a shower, and you're constantly bleeding, sweating, and even shitting your pants. And that's going to make it much harder to mask your scent, and that much easier for the dog to find you. I mean, the woman was single-handedly able to kill an entire pirate crew. Do you think you have a chance against her, especially when she has a 100-pound cannonball of a dog coming at you? Avoiding this tag team of woman and man's best friend that both have had their killer instincts sharpened by an island's brutal environment and the world of piracy on the high seas will have your guts being ripped open by a dog named Snug and your head caved in under the heavy hill of the Houndmaster. With the Pirates What of the Caribbean word, we now go to the ghouls of the anime with the Ghoul of Tokyo Ghoul. A Japanese literature student, Ken Kaneki, would ask out an attractive woman one night named Rize. When alone, she would reveal her persona as a flesh-eating ghoul and begin to eat him alive before a freak construction accident killed her and severely injuring Ken right after his mutilation. Emergency services apparently saw that she was an organ donor and transplanted some of her intact organs into Ken. His life was saved, but changed forever, now craving human flesh constantly due to the blood running through his veins that had converted him into a human-ghoul hybrid. A local cafe of secret ghouls taught him how to suppress this bloodlust that he had now, also learning how to use his newfound strength and abilities. Before learning how to live a quiet and peaceful ghoulish existence off the radar, a ghoul by the name of Jason would kidnap him, torturing Ken in a warehouse to such an extreme degree that it would break his psyche to the point that the young boy Kaneki was basically mentally eradicated. Rize would appear within his mind to guide his changing personality to become the true killer their kind were meant to be. Kaneki would use his powers to kill his torturer and eat his flesh to become stronger. Before the continued events and story of Tokyo Ghoul would have him toe the line of his humanity, the entity would appear within the warehouse with his trademark black fog to make sure the peak insane killer that was Kaneki was harnessed. And now he is within the entity's realm. Once this tentacle-loving anime pretty boy makes his appearance in your trial, just know a litany of deadly fates awaits you. The ghoul will rely on his hentai appendages to maneuver through the trials like a cephalopod Spider-Man, clinging them to vertical surfaces to launch him fastly to wherever he grabs, including sticking to you with these flailing phallic menaces. These limbs can penetrate your flesh where he will proceed to drink the blood that drips from them. Drinking human blood will send this ghoul into a mad frenzy, making him more erratic and freely able to swing around 3 times instead of 2 before recharging. The ghoul will remain in a red-ridden, enraged state until you are able to mend your newly made wounds and prevent further profuse bleeding. Otherwise, they will remain to be more powerful and capable of reaching you and filling you with tentacle-shaped holes. Although, realistically speaking, having to mend these holes in a panic state on the fly will probably not go well for any of us. Many of us can't even treat a cat scratch, let alone a teenage boy's tentacle stab wound in any part of the body. No distance or obstacle can get you out of the way of the ghoul. Trying to fight back against him won't do much due to his genetic ghoul mutations hardening its flesh. The ghoul, whether it be Kaneki or Rize, will be hard to shake and even harder not to become a dinner for. Both of them cold, calculative, super fast, super strong, and extremely intelligent. Even when submerged in their own chaotic bloodlust can they dip into their perfected hunting instincts. They have been masters of blending in with normal people, so they know how to hunt human beings. If not nerfed by the entity, they would simply shoot out of the trials beginning like a bullet and instantly turn you into a buffet of blood. Since there is no larger society to hunt down ghouls if they are seen, 4 survivors with nothing to defend themselves with besides some flashlights, toolboxes, and pallets of would be a kid's meal to these Japanese cannibals. Once the ghoul has a taste for your blood, riddle you with stab wounds over and over, leaving your guts sprawled open from what the game devs call the power of the one-eyed terror. And for today's final killer and the main attraction, we have the child killer turned furry, turned reanimated corpse in a suit himself, Springtrap, aka the Animatronic. In the 1970s, 2 individuals would found and create Fazbear Entertainment, Henry Emily and the one-day killer to be William Afton, creating animatronics as live performers for children to enjoy, paralleling the success of Showbiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese's own robot animals, making a family diner before creating Freddy Fazbear's Pizza with the headliners of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. In the formative years, Afton would don his own animatronic suit named Spring Bonnie, a dangerous visage that would crush his own body via spring locks if not maintained well via an internal crank system. But the thrill of donning the technical apparatus led to him being a very joyous person while being the Yellow Rabbit. Years of working with Emily had left him in his associate's shadow, both revering and envying him for his better prowess in robotics work. One fateful night in 1983, a group of children would lock Emily's daughter Charlotte outside the pizzeria in the rain as a prank. Alone and crying, William would spot her from his car and chose to kill her in cold blood. An animatronic that would protect her, called the Puppet, would come to her side as she was dead, as her soul would inhabit its body. The famous Bite of 83 would happen not too long after this, an incident where William Afton's own youngest son, Evan, would be bullied into the mouth of Fredbear's animatronic by his older brother Mike, only for the spring locks within its head to trip from his tears, crushing the child's skull, killing him instantly. Evan's death triggered something chaotic and dark in Afton's mind, something he could not come back from. In 1985, Afton would lure 5 unsuspecting children into the back rooms of the pizza restaurant as the cheerful Spring Bonnie, only to butcher them and hide their rotting corpses in the animatronic suits in the restaurant. Arrests and investigations would be launched against Afton, but with no substantial evidence, the psychopath was released. The dead children would seek vengeance by possessing the suits they were stuffed into, much like the puppet years ago. Due to controversy and more, eventually the pizza place would shut down indefinitely. Afton would move on and establish Afton Robotics LLC, leading to the creation of a new set of animatronics, the Funtime series, for Circus Baby Pizzeria, centered around his daughter Elizabeth's favorite creation of his, Circus Baby. Touring the attraction before opening the site, Elizabeth wanted to approach it for some ice cream. Afton told her to not get near it as the suit was still volatile. Her favoritism would lead to her disobeying her father, the ice cream, as the machine would pull her in and crush her to death. To avoid controversy, the press were told the tragic death of hers was spurred by a simple gas leak, a fatal accident on Afton's part, as he had designed the Funtime animatronics with AI that focused on the sole intent of kidnapping children, with his daughter being the unintended first victim. To save face, Afton would convert the never-to-be pizzeria brand into a rental business to rent out the Funtimes to private parties. Afton was now over the deep end in his chaotic and murderous mindset. 2 of his 3 kids were now stone cold dead. His killing spree was widening. It is theorized that Afton was trying to discover a way of attaining immortality, discovering and attempting to use a liquid by the name of Remnant, a tangible substance of soul and metal derived from possessed animatronics, to create more of his own deadly animatronics and to see about making himself an everlasting killer. To do so, he would return to the abandoned location of the 3rd Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to destroy the possessed animatronics that dwell there and harness their remnant. He would successfully destroy the robots, but the ghosts in the shell were unleashed. Vengeful spirits of dead children did they all chase after their killer, unable to physically touch him, but still torment him as they ran him into the back rooms where they were originally slain. The same Spring Bonnie suit that he had worn all those years ago, laying there like the Green Goblin mask, beckoning to him. Donning the metal costume after all this time to try and evade their haunt, Afton did not account for years of neglect and lack of maintenance. Rain from the outside had consistently rusted and fried its electronics. By the time the apparitions of the victims got to him, the spring lock system within the suit had already started to begin pincering into his flesh, obliterating parts of his body and causing him to severely hemorrhage. Afton had met his own demise in the same suit he had used to trick the children that now were looking over his dying frame. With their killer dead, the children could now pass on to the next life, lying motionless in the Yellow Rabbit. The body of William Afton would never be discovered. The room of his killings and death would eventually be boarded up as he rotted there for the next 3 decades. Supposedly, it was a mixture of both Afton's vengeful nature, his thirst to kill, and remnant that was within the Springtrap suit that fed into his corpse over 30 years that had slowly resurrected him. Broken, haggard, and horrific looking, the malfunctioning Springtrap suit would awaken to the sounds of kids laughing, springing it to life. Now a fusion of flesh and steel, he made his way into the kitchen where the sounds of kids playing was coming from. Running to the door, he flings it open to find the room was barren of any life. There was no people there. In its place, the animatronic had found a swirling mass of black fog that held within it the shape of numerous people within this odd mist. William Afton was long dead, but the urge to kill within the madman persisted upon this sight. The entity had implanted in the newly born Springtrap that he would be allowed to endlessly hunt new victims to his mechanical heart's content forever. Achieving his original goal of immortality while being able to kill, he stepped into the fog. Once called upon to your trial, the decrepit Yellow Rabbit animatronic will not hesitate to find you for butchering, wielding a sharpened pizza knife to cut you to slices with. Even more deadly and acute in his other hand is a fire axe. The entity gives him the dexterity and ability to throw it with deadly precision, to the point that it can lodge deeply into your back. To have a bladed weapon just stuck in your back as you frantically try to run away from him is one thing, but as long as it's in you, you cannot be healed. The axe itself also has some kind of relationship with Afton, letting him know if any survivors are nearby it. This effectively lets him throw it anywhere he sees fit as a sort of recon to find you if you are hiding somewhere far off. Springtrap can call this weapon back to him to manifest in his hand at any time, effectively allowing him to always be able to huntress you at any given time. If the axe is lodged in your back and the mechanized meleeer catches up to you with the weapon in your body, he can pull the handle, turn you around, jump, scream, scare in your face, and put your body in his one hand to prime you for a hooky sacrifice, cutting out the middleman of having to slash you to the ground. Outside of this, the entity was apparently a huge FNaF fan and has given Springtrap and the survivors numerous gateways into the security room with security doors topped with security cameras. A very secure, or we should say insecure, way of existing. 7 of these doors will manifest around the environment of your trial near generators, allowing either you or the killer to use them at any given time to walk in endless darkness to the security room to travel to other doors around the trial. You can check these surveillance devices for signs of Springtrap and relay that information directly to your fellow survivors through a telepathic link. The Yellow Rabbit can easily destroy this tech, but as they say, information is a powerful weapon, but not as nearly as powerful as an undead animatronic, especially when he too enters these doors and finds you in the very establishment that he helped create. The use of these doors and cameras can eventually deplete the power supply for both. Springtrap can enter and get you like a fish fish in a barrel, being able to instantly grab you with his spring-locked strength if he so happens to enter these doors while you are going through. The baseline of this ability is just like William Afton did in his previous life. He offers something to his victims that baits them into a back room, and if dwelling there long enough or within his sights, he can find himself easily killing you. The power to instantly transport yourself around the trial is enticing, especially after countless death battles where you have to run across the entirety of these maps. But the fact that you could be easily picked off if you do this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. William Afton, having not been one to bow to others in the entirety of his life, probably is not too fond of working for the entity, especially having to give up that final glorious act of cinching the kill of an innocent, instead having to watch his victims be drug off into a void. He does not get to savor the last moments of someone's life. At some points, the animatronic can choose to circumvent feeding his new boss to kill you outright, grabbing you by the head off the ground, jamming his knife into your back as it pierces through your chest to get the marinara of life to spill out into the ground, hoisting you high while still on the knife as he conjures the skeleton of one of his most demented animatronics yet and jams you into it with its saw blades whirring all across its frame, chopping your body to bits, gray matter blending in the process, flying all about as you fall to the ground lifeless. The final sight you will see before being sent back to the campfire is the child killer screaming into your face, sinking your psyche even more as William, or I should say Springtrap, knows he got to satiate his bloodlust with his own inventions and not the entities, all without the tiresome hassle of harvesting remnant so he can live eternally doing what he loves most in the place he loves most. That about wraps up this elongated and prolongated look into the Dead by Daylight universe after a long hiatus. Is there something I omitted from the 15 back-to-back killers and their lore, feats, and abilities to wipe you out with in the entity's realm? Let me know down below, as I'm sure in my research into 15 different IPs and characters that I probably got something wrong. But it was fun to write, research, edit, and record regardless. This was a really fun video to do. If you want me to do deep dives into any of these killers in their own native universes, don't hesitate to ask for their own full Why You Wouldn't Survive scenario or suggest a new one down below. This one took me about 80 hours to put together, so if you feel like it, head to my Patreon or YouTube channel memberships page and chip in just $1, $1 to see future videos earlier than everybody else and have your name featured on this list here. You can also support me by using code WOW at checkout at Gamersubs to get 10% off your order, and if I get enough sales, I'll try and see about making my own flavor, something like a Left 4 Dead Boomer Bile. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, stay away from anything that would draw in these over 40 killers, and away from blackened fogs, and most importantly, stay wow. See you in 2 years.